Well, friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time, and I'm here today to talk about how to make your own organic buttermints and how to create some of your own flavors and use all natural coloring and of course natural flavors. So I'm going to start with just the basic buttermint recipe. There's very little involved in the ingredients. It's just butter, hence the name Buttermints, powdered sugar, and then whatever flavoring you're going to use. And obviously if it's going to be mint, you're going to add mint and also vanilla extract because that helps add to that more creamy flavor. I did go look up a recipe. Instead of combining a bunch of different ones, I just looked up one and started with that and was happy with the results. So it was just a half cup of butter to start with. So that would be 4 ounces or 1 stick. I find it easier to work with, especially in my very cold house, to warm it up a little bit first. It's preferable that it's not completely melted, just warm, so you can easily whip it up. So you whip the butter until it's really smooth. And then what I did at that point is I started adding in the 4 cups of powdered sugar a little bit at a time. And then just kept whipping it in. Now, just so you know, I used organic grass-fed butter and organic powdered sugar that I get from Azure Standard, which you can see that right here. Now, I have made organic powdered sugar myself back before I had access to get organic powdered sugar already made up. And I have a video on that if you just want to do it with your own, whatever organic sugar you already have on hand. You can even try, which I did do, working with coconut sugar and other such, if you're looking for something to have more minerals in it. So anyway, I just added the powdered sugar in a bit at a time and just kept blending it in. And before I finish adding all the powdered sugar in, at that point I add in up to a tablespoon, yes, of my homemade vanilla extract. As you'll see right here, this little sign just lets me know when I filled it last. It helps me keep track of how fast I'm going through 8 ounces of vanilla extract. And then if you're making the mint, the classic buttermint flavor, you can then add your peppermint flavoring, which in this case I use peppermint essential oil. I've made peppermint extract before, and while it turned out good, I prefer for certain flavors to use the oils. You only need a few drops, and I recommend starting off with just maybe 3 drops. If you're using any essential oils in the whole recipe, you can always add a couple more or 1 at a time more as you're working with it and tasting it to see if you're getting the flavor that you really want. I would say I put probably about 4 to 5 drops of peppermint oil in. And though part of me thought it could use a little bit more, my sister-in-law thought they were perfect and she loved them. I almost forgot. I also added about a tablespoon of heavy whipping cream to that too, just to give even more of that creamy flavor to it. And then at that point, you're going to knead it and work it just like maybe a shaped cookie dough is basically what it's like. And I was reading how some people like to use candy molds to press it into to get the different shapes, which I have a bunch of those. I didn't even think to use, but in this case, in all of the ones I made, I decided to keep it very standard. And so all I did was roll them out into little ropes, and then using this, I just cut them into approximately 3/4 inch length pieces. Some were shorter, some were longer. I really didn't care that they were perfect. And then all you do is you just leave them for about 24 hours to dry. And so I just laid them out and threw a towel over them to let them, not get anything on them while they're drying for the next 24 hours. And they turned out so good. And so here's a little video clip of the finished product of the Buttermints. Now let me go on to explain how I created the other flavors. So what I have here is a pumpkin spice, the raspberry cream, the key lime pie is what I'm calling it, and the orange cream. And you can see there is a little bit of difference in color between the orange and the classic. So let me explain how I did this, starting off with the orange. This one, I wouldn't say I like them better than the classics necessarily. I like them equally well. These are so good. So in this case, when I did these 4 flavors, I made a whole new batch and then divided it into 4 parts. But before I did that, I did make sure I added the heavy whipping cream and the vanilla extract to the whole batch, but not the peppermint oil. So with the orange, I added in, again, a few drops, about the equal amount, like 4 to 5 drops of orange oil, and worked with it a little bit more. I added more as if I felt it needed it. The other thing I did to help add flavor as well as color was took my dehydrated organic mandarin peels that I had powdered up, and I powdered them again just to get them as fine as possible so you wouldn't get chewy bits in there. And this did really good for helping to color. All I wanted the color to be just enough different from the classic so you could tell them apart. And but it did also contribute to a nice flavor. I was a little concerned about it because I don't take the pith off, especially those thin ones like that, so it could make it bitter. So I started off with about a tablespoon, found the flavor to be pretty good, added another tablespoon, and they turned out perfect. So about 5 drops of orange oil and 2 tablespoons of the powdered peels, and definitely orange cream. So you got that vanilla in there. So it does kind of taste like a creamsicle. So that's the orange. Next, let's go over the raspberry. This one also turned out quite good. Now in this case, I did use my homemade raspberry extract that I made years ago. I always forget I have it. This is one of the best, other than vanilla, this is one of the very best flavored extracts I have made. And I used the Mother Earth Products organic freeze-dried raspberries in this case. The one thing about freeze-dried fruits for extracts I do like, I don't really like to sit around and eat freeze-dried fruits, but I love using them for flavoring for a few things. And so making an extract out of them is really great because it holds that fresh raspberry flavor. And this is so good. So I did have to add more powdered sugar because it is liquid, so I had to put in up to about a tablespoon of the raspberry extract, and that flavor was perfect. It turned out to be just right for the flavor, but again, I had to increase the powdered sugar and work that in because it was a little too sticky and wet because of that. But I did also use the organic beet juice powder, and the reason I use this over the organic beetroot powder that I got from Azure Standard is the color is more vibrant and the flavor is better, especially when you're talking about adding it to something sweet. And I really didn't want to have that rooty flavor in the raspberry cream candies. And turned out perfect. There was no beet flavor at all. In fact, I found it helped add to the flavor in a very good way of the raspberry. But I will say I added a lot more of the powder than I thought I would, considering how dark it is. As I kept working it in, I had to keep adding powder to get the color I wanted. Now I could have used a little bit less and had a lighter pink color, but I liked the way this color turned out. So then with the key lime pie, the process was completely the same, except using lime essential oil. However, as you'll see in the clip, I accidentally poured in a little bit too much. I only meant there to be a few drops. I should have used a dropper, but usually I'm pretty good at just kind of sprinkling out a couple of drops. So too much flavor in there with the lime. They still turned out quite good. The flavor is great, just a little too strong. That then leaves kind of a bitter aftertaste. So be very careful when you're adding in the flavorings of any of your essential oils. But then for the coloring, I used organic spirulina powder that I got from Anthony's Goods. And same thing again, I thought I would have to I would only need just a little bit for it to get this. Now, I did actually make it a little darker than I intended, but I still like the color. But to get that color, I did end up having to add a lot more. So same thing when you're adding these powders in, just start with a little bit and work it in. If you want a very light pastel color, don't use as much as I did. If you want a little more depth of your color, then do like I did. I would say you could do the same thing with the blue butterfly powder to get a more blue color, or mixing just like I did with the organic pasta, mixing the beet juice powder with the blue butterfly powder and get more of a purple color. Now, you can do that same thing if you're not wanting all these flavors and you want to stick with just the classic buttermint flavor. You can still make a bunch of them, have them all taste the same, but use these natural powders for different colorings to add to that. Anyway, these were all really good, other than the lime being a little bit too strong. Still very, very good. Now, let's move on to the pumpkin spice. The pumpkin spice flavor is great. It tastes a lot like pumpkin pie. I won't do these like this again though. What I used was my own organic pumpkin powder from my own pumpkins, and then added in the spices such as the cinnamon, a little bit of nutmeg, and cloves. The flavor was perfect. However, because I was replacing some of the powdered sugar with the pumpkin powder so I could increase the amount of pumpkin powder and get a lot of that pumpkin flavor in there, what ended up happening was they turned out really dry. I couldn't roll them out the same way. They turned out really dry, and the texture is just not the same. So I just had to cut them in squares. Like I said, the flavor is good, but it's very dry and kind of crumbly. It's not that creamy texture that I got from all the rest of these. So, well, I'm not going to say I won't do it again. I may try it again, but I think the thing I would do differently with the pumpkin is to first mix it with the heavy whipping cream and vanilla extract and let that absorb the moisture. And if it's still too dry, maybe add in a little bit more whipping cream until it's not so dry. Because I know what happened was the pumpkin powder ended up absorbing all of the liquid, the extract and the whipping cream from the dough. And then that's what made it so dried out. But again, the flavor is great. Tastes just like pumpkin pie. So they'll still get eaten, but it's just not the same as the texture. But I do think if you mix it with the liquid first and get it to where it's almost its own dough as is, when you get it to that consistency and very well blended, then blend it in with the rest of the dough. That's just the butter and powdered sugar, and then see how that turns out. You can try it. I will probably try it eventually, but I'll probably wait till fall to try it. I mean, these right here are perfect for spring and summer. So whether you do the flavors or you just want to do the colors, this is a fun idea for candies that you can gift to people or have for special events, even if it's a wedding. That's what I always remember Buttermints being associated with, was every wedding I went to in the 70s had Buttermints, and I loved them. And they all tasted the same, but the colors were all different. So either way, you can have a lot of fun with your natural food powders. I'll just run through the basics again real quick. So it's 1/2 cup of butter, 4 cups powdered sugar, tablespoon of whipping cream, and up to a tablespoon of vanilla extract, and then the whatever oils or other flavors you want to add at that point. And then you just knead it and work it, and yeah, it's great. It's fun. It's really a fun activity. And this would also be a fun project to do with your kids or your grandkids. So I hope you enjoyed this video and it gave you a few ideas, and from there you can expand out, create your own natural colors and flavors based on that. And thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.